It's just about 8 a.m. on this Labor Day Monday morning. Here at Local 10, we continue to track this monster storm, Hurricane Dorian, still very powerful and slowly moving.
And our team coverage of this hurricane continues right now with Local 10. We can show you video of the destruction we have already gotten into our newsroom. This is from the Bahamas. Catastrophic damage you're seeing right now in Marsh Harbor. You're seeing homes underwater, boats underwater, cars demolished, trees gone, of course, power lines down. And this is just the beginning of what we're getting because the communication is so sketchy because there has been such catastrophic demolition to that island because of this Category 5 monster storm we're monitoring for you.
And despite what you're seeing right there, even that area not out of the woods yet, and Grand Bahamas certainly right in the mix of what has just been a devastating storm. Our Weather Authority team is covering it all for you this morning. South Florida, I'm Eric Yeltsin.
And I'm JC Birch. We want to bring in Luke Doris. We also want to bring in Julie Durda and check with you guys. It looks like you have that 8 a.m. advisory.
That's right, and nothing has really changed with the advisory, which is very surprising for Luke and I to see because we've been talking about how it looks as though the eye wall was doing a replacement, and meteorologist Luke Doris will have more details on that. So there's still some things we need to really watch with this system as it has winds of 165 miles per hour. That was the same as a 7 a.m. Pressure 916 millibars. That was the same as well, and it's crawling to the north at 1 mile per hour, technically the same distance from West Palm Beach. So one thing we can tell you, this is a large, powerful monster of a storm, devastating the Bahamas, life-threatening storm surge for them, and more rain is expected, as you can see. Unfortunately, those outer bands wrapping around that eye wall, the strongest part of the system, most damaging winds around that eye wall by the Bahamas. Outer bands already starting to affect parts of Broward County and the Keys this morning. We are getting slammed with some moderate to heavy precipitation as the system is just about 120 miles just offshore. And no surprise why we are dealing with the possibility of tropical storm force winds. That's because they extend out from the center 140 miles. Forecast cone of concern keeps the system pretty much hugging the east coast of Florida as it heads more towards the north. We are waiting for that to happen. We are waiting for that north direction to occur with this system. So we're obviously going to have to wait a little bit longer. One thing you're not going to have to wait for is the possibility of tropical storm force winds in Broward County. Some of those winds have already been sustained in the 20s, wind gusts that is. Now, anywhere just north is expected a hurricane watch and a tropical storm warning with stronger winds expected and heavier amount of precipitation. So for Broward County, Fort Lauderdale, anywhere from Oakland Park, Deerfield Beach, you're getting slammed right now with actually tropical storm force winds in the bands of Hurricane Dorian. That's just offshore. Also, Oakland Park all the way south into Fort Lauderdale, Las Olas, all of you will have to deal with possibility of tropical storm force winds and tropical storm force wind gust. We're expecting wind gusts to extend to Miami, but Miami, you're not expecting sustained winds. That's why you're not under the tropical storm watch. But Miami, you'll start to see those gusts as early as this afternoon. Broward County, we're already dealing with tropical storm force winds, and we're also dealing, tropical storm force wind will be expected later this morning, I should say. The gusts haven't been that strong quite yet. Not only are we dealing with the wind, we're going to have to deal with the rain today. I've got that radar coming up in just a bit. Let's toss it over to Luke Doris for more.
Well, Julie, you mentioned it a second ago how we were in the back looking at this and we had the latest 8 a.m. advisory and we were expecting a few updates and they really didn't show up. So the National Hurricane Center still says it's moving west at slower than you would walk at 1 mile per hour. It's going to be there all day long. This is an all-day event for Grand Bahama. It's absolutely just horrendous how they've got a Cat 5 over the top of them for hours and hours. Winds to 165, but look at this with me on satellite and you'll see a couple changes in here. One would be just look at the circumference of the eye. In the beginning of the loop, it looks very tight, looks very symmetrical. Toward the end of the loop, it looks lopsided a little bit. It's got some just different motions in it that it didn't used to have. And also you can start to see how it wobbles a little bit. All signs that maybe it's going under some sort of a structural change. And when you see that, you would expect that the peak winds would drop off a little bit. Pressure might go up a hair as well. Anyway, it is moving. It looks like you can follow that eye. It looks like it's got a little northward movement to me. Do you see that? I mean, it's there. So maybe not a direct westward movement. That's not great news for places like High Rock. They're going to get right back into an eye wall. But the sooner that the storm moves north, the better for Florida, as that would mean it's more likely to remain offshore, and the impacts here in South Florida especially, it would start to move off with the storm sooner than if it were to continue to migrate all the way to the west. Of course, the distance between us and the center of the storm is everything, and this is just a very small change can cause big differences, so it's a game of inches. It looked like our inner eye wall did erode. The bigger outer eye wall taking back over Grand Bahama, Sweeting Key, they're in it right now. Freeport's on the edge. Maybe it dropped off a little bit by High Rock, but that's going to be temporary, especially if it continues that move northward. Put it in perspective, yesterday, as it made its first landfall, it's made 3. When it made its first landfall, it went down as one of the strongest on record to ever make landfall anywhere in the world at 185 miles per hour. That would tie the 1935 Labor Day hurricane. Now, there have been stronger storms that have been measured, or that have made landfall but not been directly measured. Okay, so let's look at the modeling here. We're looking at the Euro on top of all the ensembles. They have it through the day just barely moving. Again, this is an all-day event for Grand Bahama. Watch as we go to this evening and tomorrow morning. There we get into that northwestward turn. The red line is the one that the National Hurricane Center follows most closely. European largely agrees with that now. In previous times it didn't, but just how far close or how far west it gets, that will determine just how much we feel it. Nonetheless, we get into early Wednesday morning and watch it be dangerously close to the east coast of Florida. I know a lot of us have friends, family, or property up here. We're going to take a look at this. I'm looking specifically at the blue and purple model. Now, the blue one is one that, notice how close it is to Cape Canaveral, Cocoa Beach, places like that. That blue one is tied to the temperatures of the ocean. It takes that into effect. With a slow-moving storm, it churns the water, and the cooler water comes up from below. It's what we call upwelling. That can weaken the storm. If that were to happen, then it might feel more of a push west. That's why the blue model is further west. So if that were to play out, we're going to have to watch and see just how close to the coast it would get. Nonetheless, if it stays stronger and taller as it has so far, then it would feel more of an influence from the north and west, from the upper levels of the atmosphere. So again, weaker, stronger. We almost want to kind of halfway hope for stronger. It'd be further away. Nonetheless, all this is big impacts in the form of storm surge, strong winds for the Florida East Coast, and then it just is dangerously close to landfall all the way up to North Florida and to the southeast, even on up into Cape Hatteras by Wednesday and Thursday. It's well removed from here in South Florida. In fact, by Tuesday morning, that's where it really starts to take that jaunt off to the north and west. Until then, it's kind of stuck. It's producing rain bands. We're going to feel the kick of some of those rain bands today, Julie. And what do we have on the radar with those at the moment?
Yeah, we already are, Luke. And not only that, we're dealing with the winds. We've heard of tropical storm force gusts already being felt in Juneau, where we are going to be giving you a live report. Live look outside from our Miami tower cam. Temperatures are in the lower 80s. Fort Lauderdale, Miami, 84 degrees in Key West. But you can see that massive hurricane just offshore. And those bands, this is just the beginning, my friends, especially for Broward County. Moderate to heavy precipitation over Pompano Beach and towards Boca Raton. US 1, I-95. Again, this is just the beginning. And embedded in those bands, some very strong winds. Heavy rain over parts of the lower Keys, a 7-mile bridge and towards Big Pine Key, all the way to Cudjoe Key. And you've got some lightning involved with those storms. Winds anywhere between 10 to 15 miles per hour with gusts in the 20s. They've been sustained in the 20s, almost knocking on the 30s. And that's why, once again, Fort Lauderdale is under a tropical storm watch. More details on the forecast. I've got it coming up.